What's up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, and the overall markets. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar approaching tomorrow and some new developments on these charts. But just note that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total. And the offer ends very soon at the end of March. So anyways, let's talk about what's happening with this market thus far. Looking at NIO, we got this nice little rebound attempt, but we're going to be watching to see if we could break resistance or not as we're approaching our 50 EMA. And if we can't break past it, I will be looking for these supports down below. Now, it is worth noting that there's a possible cup and handle-like structure as we're trying to make a lower high here. As long as we hold this low right here, we're trying to make a higher low here. Let me just clarify that. As long as we hold this low, this could be an attempt for it to try to reverse and try to continue to push. This is going to be dependent on some factors, so I want to talk about those first. Then I'll break down the charts. So as far as NIO is going, on January 22nd, 2025, NIO has once again earned its place in the 2025 Global 100 by Corporate Knights, ranking 13th out of 8,359 evaluated companies worldwide. This is a good piece of news because of the potential that it has, at least moving forward. Besides that, I didn't see anything else that was too significant, at least on the news. But if anything, this is a good sign for their long term because of their business fundamentals and the community that they are building. Now, in my opinion, I think that at least for the short term, we're at a very, very undervalued place. But this opens the doors for the long term for us to see a lot of growth and etc. Looking at the broader markets, we saw a flat day. We saw a lot of sectors like finance, consumer durables, and many others in the red. But big tech were still in the green, looking at Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and many others. We also saw the S&P 500 managed to close in the green, and the SPY was barely in the green, so was the QQQ. And we'll be watching to see how we end up reacting to all of this. Going into tomorrow, we have initial jobless claims coming out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And besides that, there's nothing else that's too crazy, so we'll see what all of this leads to. And then in terms of our data, just know that there's nothing too significant coming out for earnings. We just got Discover announcing earnings. Tomorrow we have GE Aerospace and then American Airlines. So we'll see what that leads to. Just keep in mind that as far as Discover goes, they have earnings that have come out. They've topped estimates, looking at their net income at $1.3 billion. And they have once again exceeded expectations. So that's a good sign for them. We had $5.11 for their EPS. Revenue is also above expectations at $4.76 billion. Everything else is looking quite good, at least for them as time goes on. So nice growth overall. I can't wait to see what else the future holds. As far as NIO goes, Goldman Sachs has, despite the fact that they downgraded NIO from a neutral to a sell rating, I still see potential in NIO at least moving forward. Besides that, the price-price ratio is still decent as we're trying to hold up right here. And I also want to add that in terms of our seasonality, we tend to see more volatility. There tends to be more and more volatility. We're green about 49% of the time on Thursdays. And that's pretty much it for now. I'm not seeing anything else that's too insane in this data. Volume is still kind of dry at about 40 million, a little bit below that. So just keep that in mind. There is still fear in the markets. We're getting very close to neutral. Right now, momentum is at neutral, and these other indicators are at neutral. There's been less put buying. We're seeing a lot of puts being close to the markets looking neutral. So we'll see what this leads to, especially as we're at these all-time highs. So as far as NIO goes, this is starting to outperform the market to some extent. What I anticipate for tomorrow is something like this. We're going to be testing our key EMAs. I think we might see a lot of range-bound price action. We might decline to about 4.23, but as long as we hold support and we don't make a lower high, if we reject here and we don't end up holding this low, if we end up losing 4.1, there's going to be a risk of us revisiting this low. But as long as we hold support here, we could try to rebound from like a cup and handle. This is kind of like a cup, and this could be like a handle that's forming as we have potential to try to bounce. We need to hold above 4.3 for confirmation. If we break that, we turn bullish. So if we lose 4.1, we turn bearish. If we break 4.3, we will be looking a little bit more bullish. I hope we hold above 4.3, so we'll see how it ends up going. For other pieces of news, just know that as far as SPY is going, I do want to mention that we pumped very nicely today. We're starting to reject a little bit right here. We also have we also have this gap to fill down here, I believe in the 602s. So there's a very, very good chance this might reverse and come back down. There's a big gap down here on the daily chart, which makes me suspect that it might be coming down to fill that gap if we do get some kind of rejection. If we break 608, we're looking for 610. It's always possible we try to keep going up. But notice that we have a lot of gaps left on the daily charts. And if we do get a reversal, we could start to fill at least some of these. So I anticipate that because we got this rejection that's starting to form with this wick there might be a small pullback to about this gap fill near 603 to 602.5. And then we'll see if we bounce off that or not. But we might see a little bit of a dip here. Because we're at the previous all-time high, we're at some tough resistance, and there's a bit of a slowdown that could be starting. Looking at the QQQ, we pushed about 533 and we weren't able to hold above that. We dipped 2 points from there. So if we could try to hold this, yes, we could continue to push higher if we hold above 533. And if we can't do that, we might be coming down to fill this gap back down to about 525. So be careful. There could be a small pullback before it tries to bounce again. But just keep that in mind. The IWM Russell 2000 is also starting to reject us. We have a gap to fill around 227. So there's a good chance we might be dipping down to fill that gap. And we'll see if we get a bounce or not. So just keep that in mind. For ES, we have a gap to fill down here around this 6,080 area. So we might be coming back down. We'll see if we get some kind of bounce or not, but just know that there's a tough resistance here. And we'll see if we get some kind of rejection or not. So I'll be watching this very, very closely. But just know that there is that gap, and we have not been able to hold above 6,000, 61.25. So I do think we might be coming back down very, very soon. Looking at NQ, I just want to say that there's tough resistance right here. We need to try to hold above 22,000. If we hold that, we're bullish, and we could be looking for this to attempt to get to 22,200. If we don't hold above 22,000, we're looking for this gap down here around 21,700. So watch to see if we get a rejection or not, and that's going to be very key for how we end up continuing. Bitcoin's rejecting here. We're going to be looking for an attempt to get back down to 102,000. We'll see if we bounce off that or not, but just watch that level very closely. Nvidia pumped very nicely. It's still looking bullish. As long as we don't lose 144, we could continue for about 150. So I do see potential in this, at least on the daily chart. But I am a little bit concerned about Tesla because we're looking weaker on the daily. And then we're barely at this trend line of support very close to 414. So we got to hold that. If we can't, there could be a dip back down to about 400 flat. My concern is that there's a possible head and shoulders that could be developing here. And if we can't hold a support right over here to bounce up, if we lose the support, there's going to be a risk of this coming back down. So please keep that in mind. For others out there, we have Aapl. Aapl, of all things, is showing some light, but I want to see it try to get back above where this gap is around 224. If we get back above 224, we're looking for 227.5 or above. And if we can't, we're looking for another rejection. So look for an attempt to test 224. If we hold above that, we're looking for a push. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. Coin is trading sideways here. We have not been able to crack past 300 yet. There's a possible reversal structure here. If we break 300, we're bullish. If not, we could be returning to 285. So just keep that in mind. Amazon pumped very nicely, but it's starting to show signs of rejection. So I might get a little retest at 233. We'll have to see if we bounce off that or not. If we don't, we will be tipping lower. So watch and see. So watch and see what kind of reaction we get, at least moving forward. That's going to be very, very key for us. For Meta, we're forming kind of like a cup and handle like structure. We could be dipping lower towards 617 to about 620 in that range. So there could be a little downside here, and we'll see if we get a bounce forming a cup and handle. So give this some time to develop. For Microsoft, we have this resistance around this 446 area. If we reject here, we could be dipping back down towards the 440 zone. So we'll see what ends up happening here. And if we break past this, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to about 448. So we could be dipping lower towards 442 or below. So give this the time it needs, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get. For Google, we also happen to have a potential rejection structure. We have this 200 area as our main area to watch for. If we can't hold above that, we're looking for essentially 198. So we'll see what kind of move we make here. There might be a dip here, especially as we have this gap to fill. So give it some time to develop. With that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. So please have a good rest of your day. I see a risk of the market pulling back a bit, and Tesla's barely holding support, so be careful. NIO, on the other hand, is trying to form a cup and handle, but that depends if we could try to break 4.3. If we hold above that tomorrow, that's going to be our 50 EMA. If we break that, we could be pushing higher. I do anticipate there's going to be a small pullback here, but if we could bounce and hold above this, we will push higher. As long as 4.1 does not break, we do favor this cup and handle like move for a bigger push. If not, if we lose 4.23, we'll turn back down to 4.1. If that fails us, we turn bearish. I'm hoping the cup and handle pans out for us to push towards like 4.4 or above. So we'll see about that just to be safe. With that being said, I thank you for listening. Despite the weakness in the markets, NIO is showing a little bit of strength. So we'll see what ends up developing from here. Thanks again, and peace out.